They didn't want clarity. They wanted a confession. I gave them neither. I walked in with my notebook and a coffee I didn't even finish. That's how relaxed I was. HR had booked the room, sure, but the invite was vague enough that I figured it was procedural. Maybe a clarification chat. Nothing serious. I greeted everyone the way I normally would. Not to Shiv, polite hey to Carly, even a half joke about the weather because it was muggy and no one had the AC right in that wing. I wasn't defensive, not bracing, just ready to talk like grown-ups. It was Marcus who opened, head of HR. He smiled, but not the kind that lands. It sat too long on his face, like he didn't trust it to hold on its own. He started with thanks, the kind that's rehearsed and tone polished. Thanks for making the time today. We just want to create some space to talk through a few things that have come up. I said sure, no problem. But then he glanced at his notes. And something about that pause before his next sentence made the air in the room tighten a little. Not hostile, just off. Like we weren't in a conversation anymore. We were entering script. So, Marcus began, how would you describe your dynamic with Carly over the past few weeks? He said it lightly, conversationally, like he was asking about a lunch order. But that phrasing, your dynamic with Carly, not how are things going, not has there been any miscommunication. No, this was surgical. It assumed something worth describing, some noteworthy friction or shift. A question like that isn't looking for information. It's offering a rope, hoping I'll hang myself with it. I kept my face neutral, but internally I filed it. Not the content, but the shape of it. That question wasn't about discovery, it was about terrain. If I said the dynamic was fine, I looked oblivious. If I say it's tense, I'm conceding there's a problem. Either way, I've stepped onto their playing field and Marcus gets to referee. I gave a measured, I'd say professional, and just left it there. No adjectives, no narratives, just enough to make them work harder for the next move. Marcus nodded like it was a fair answer, but it wasn't what he wanted. I could tell by how quickly he pivoted. Would you say Carly has ever felt uncomfortable around you? He asked, and it was almost impressive. He didn't say, you made her feel uncomfortable. He just left it hanging in the air like passive smoke. No accusation, no timeline. Just a feeling he could project into the room and wait for me to either inhale or deny. That's the trick. Make it emotional, vague, and entirely unprovable. I wouldn't assume to speak for Carly, I said. Flat. Even. If she has something she wants to raise, she's free to do that. I glanced at her then, but she avoided eye contact, eyes glued to the edge of the conference table. Nothing, not a flinch, not a signal. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was theatre, and I was the only one who hadn't seen the script beforehand. Marcus smiled again, tighter this time. We're not accusing you of anything, he said. We're just trying to understand what might have led to some of the discomfort that's been raised. That's when I started to feel it. The shape of the room, the phrasing, The way he kept anchoring abstract concepts like discomfort and tension without ever naming an action. No verbs, just outcomes. That way, anything I said could be reverse engineered into cause. That was the first time I didn't respond straight away. I let the silence sit. It wasn't passive, it was diagnostic. I was watching who shifted in their chairs, who couldn't take the weight of the quiet. Because if you leave a lie hanging long enough, someone always rushes to fill it. But no one did. So I leant in slowly and said, "Just so I'm clear, are you asking if I've made someone uncomfortable, or are you asking if someone said they were uncomfortable?" There was a difference. I wanted it on record that I had spotted it. Marcus looked at his notes again. He didn't answer the question. Instead, he pivoted. "Do you think, in hindsight, there's anything you might have said that could be interpreted the wrong way?" And there it was, the dagger wrapped in bubble wrap. That's not a question. That's bait wrapped in plausible deniability. That's fishing for an apology for something unnamed, because once you apologize, the implication becomes fact. That's when I spoke, clearly, directly. "You're asking me to confess to an outcome without naming the event. That's not dialogue, Marcus. That's coercion." Marcus adjusted in his seat, fingers laced, trying to reclaim some footing. "Look, we're not assigning blame, but sometimes language, even if unintentional, can have consequences. Do you think there's a chance your phrasing, while well-intentioned, may have been misread?" It was too polished, like someone had typed it, printed it, and made him memorize it in front of a bathroom mirror. "If you wanted to know what I meant, you would have asked that. You would have said, 'Can you explain the intent behind this comment?'" I looked directly at him. "But you didn't. You asked me to speculate on how someone else may have misread me. That's not curiosity, Marcus. That's deflection. Deflection dressed as diplomacy. You're not trying to clarify. You're trying to pin something vague and make it mine." I leant forward again, slightly, not aggressively, but just enough for the whole room to feel the weight shift. Here's the thing. If you wanted resolution, you'd ask honest questions. Instead, you're manufacturing a narrative where intent is irrelevant and reaction is king. That tells me that this isn't about truth. It's about optics. You're angling for a quote, something you can drop into a file to make the paperwork feel justified. I turned slightly to the others in the room now. That's why every question today has been backward. If you actually wanted clarity, you would have asked, "What happened?" or "How did that moment unfold from your perspective?" But instead, we got, "Do you think someone could have felt?" which feels gentle, but only exists to shift the blame without naming facts. So I have to ask, if the goal was understanding, why frame it in this way? What is the intention behind these contortions? That one stuck. No one jumped in. No one defended it. Not even Shiv. I let the quiet spread, not as a pause, but as a verdict. I wasn't performing for effect. I was making sure everyone in that room had to sit with the exact shape of what was happening. And if they still went along with it after this, that was on them. I turned to Carly then. First time I addressed her directly all meeting. My voice softened. Not warm, not cold, just real. "And you, Carly, you didn't come to me. You didn't ask what I meant. You didn't check in, or clarify, or call me out privately. You went straight to HR. Nuclear first strike. She looked at me then. I wish she hadn't. I'm not mad at that, I said, but I'm curious, because that decision tells me something. It tells me that you didn't want an explanation. You didn't want context. You wanted guilt. You wanted to be right. And if you had asked me, just once, what I meant, none of us would be sitting here now. The silence after that wasn't awkward. It was honest. Marcus cleared his throat. Papers shuffled. The conversation kept going. Policies, next steps, something about documentation. But it didn't matter. The real meeting had already happened. I'd seen the angles. I named them. I hadn't come in armed, but I walked out whole. Thanks for sticking around. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Your support helps me create more content just like this. And if you're in the mood for more, check out these videos coming up right here.